All right, it's just hit 8 o'clock, so let's get this ball rolling. All right, everyone, welcome to Australians for Mental Health 6th Town Hall. We are planning to run these town halls indefinitely every Friday, 8:30 to 8 to 8:30, and we're just planning to host just conversation to talk about mental health issues. So yeah, if you feel like joining every Friday, you're more than welcome to come along. We Australians for Mental Health, we are a grassroots community-driven campaign and movement advocating for better mental health services and support. My name's Eddie, I'm part of the core team, and today we are joined by Maggie Beer, one of our patrons. And in the spirit of doing something quirky, just giving it a go, we titled this Ice Cream with Maggie Beer. So unfortunately at Coles, we didn't have your brand, Maggie. I had to go with your competitor. So my sincere apologies for that one. Yeah. I was trying to get matcha because I'm Asian, Japanese, but I could not find that flavor. So caramel honey it was. Before I hand it over to Chris to do the sort of interview with Maggie, just wanted to do two acknowledgements. One, as this is an online event, I would like to pay respects to the Indigenous elders, past, present, and emerging, whose lands we are all sitting on. And for me, it's the Kiragajanji people. And also on behalf of our org, I would just like to send love and compassion to everyone across Australia who is going through a rough time at the moment, especially with COVID. So yeah, I hope you're going okay today. And if you're not, it's okay. As we do this interview, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We're going to do a hard stop at 30 minutes. So hopefully we'll get some time to get to a few of them. So without any further ado, here's the stage to Chris and Maggie.
Thanks, Eddie. And yeah, thanks so much, Maggie, for joining. You're doing some punishing filming days at the moment. So just to get half an hour to hear from you is really, really appreciated. Maybe you can share with our community, how you came to be a patron of Australians for Mental Health. What's your kind of interest in this particular area?
Well, the link is getting to know Pat McGorry. When he was made Australian of the Year, I was Senior Australian of the Year, and so we had some. It was really great to sort of walk into his world, if you like, and it was very hard to say no to Pat, because I think it's an issue that we all have a responsibility to be thinking about, talking about, and doing. So it's all up to Pat. It's all because of Pat McGorry.
He's a very convincing human, isn't he? And
he is.
And so tell us, Maggie, in your life, and I mean, you've done so many amazing, wonderful things throughout it, and are such an icon to so many people. What's your experience of mental health or mental ill health been through your life or those around you, and just on a kind of personal experience, how has that kind of come to the fore in your experience?
Well, I don't know that there's a family that hasn't experienced mental health issues at some time in their life, or a person. And I know there have been times in my life that I've needed help. There are times in my life that those the closest to me need help. And it's something that is so prevalent and needs to be talked about, needs to be not hidden, needs to be accepted, that most people will at some time in their life need assistance because they're going through difficult times, whether it's anxiety or depression or loneliness or other mental health issues. And we should not ever be ashamed of it.
Hmm. And have you seen over the years, people like as a society, how we've approached it changed? I mean, have you noticed that, specific to your industry or more broadly? What's kind of been your experience of seeing those changes happen?
I think there are changes. I think I've seen changes that once upon a time it would never have been discussed. I don't think it's discussed enough, but there has been change in that there are more resources, but not enough, not nearly enough, and particularly in regional areas. And so may the changes just continue to be more open and more support and more understanding of what can make a difference. I think that's getting to what I'm hoping for rather than what I'm seeing.
Yeah, and just to remind everyone, if you have any questions or that you want to ask of Maggie, please feel free to pop it in the chat box. And so Maggie, tell me, you're in like a big passion, like your driving passion is around supporting, older Australians. And what's your experience with that? Like, tell us about your work in that area, in relation to the mental health of older Australians.
Okay, well, for me, for the last 7 years, I've been working, I established a foundation to change the food in aged care. Now, that sounds like it could be easy to do. It's been very difficult to do, but it is so essential because in my work so far has been in aged care homes, right? Not in the community. In the community is where I need to go now. But let me talk about the work that we have been doing, and that is food is the closest link to good food, beautiful food, is the closest link I know to well-being. And in aged care homes, there is just not enough understanding of how important good food is to the way someone is feeling within themselves. And in an aged care home, if someone even surrounded by people can feel incredibly isolated because they don't feel connected. So all of the work that I do starts with food on the plate, but it leads to so many things. And what our next step is to work with food in the home and how we help carers understand the kind of foods that they should be cooking for those that are, and for the older Australian, because, and then I'm so concerned about loneliness that leads to depression when someone is isolated in their own home or isolated within an aged care home. But food to me is my way forward, and I really want to share that with everyone, how it makes such a difference.
Have you I mean, in through your work, you must have seen an enormous amount of different environments in aged care. Where have you seen it been, like from a mental health perspective? Where have you seen it done really well? Like,
all right, it can be done very well, and it is being done very well. And perhaps the best is when there are small units, when there is that understanding that because someone is in aged care home, they're still able to do for themselves. Like, when Montessori says, everything you do from me, you take from me. People need a purpose and a connection. And where it is done well is when there is great respect for the cook and chef and support and a budget that will allow them to do good food. When there is a garden in an aged care home, and in Queensland, I can tell you there are good aged care. There are good aged care homes in every state, but they are not nearly enough.
Yeah.
There are more. There are more that are not than are good. But when there's a garden for the fresh herbs and vegetables for the kitchen, and a garden for the residents to be involved, residents must have the chance to be involved, or what's their point of just a passive acceptance of being, which is not acceptable.
We have our first question here, and it's a great one. Maggie, what's your go-to food or dish when you're having a challenging day, and how does it make you feel? And then we add another one, is like, what do you cook for others when they're having a challenging day?
Okay, for me, it's simple food that's full of the scent of the food that you're cooking. So firstly, for me, a challenging day at the moment, I'm doing these 15-hour days. I come home and I have some broth with an egg in a raw egg that I pour hot broth over, chicken broth for me, and just add some fresh parsley and grate some cheese. And that is so sustaining and takes me 5 minutes to do because I've already made the broth. If I'm cooking for someone, the thing that I do most for someone who is having a challenging time is roast a beautiful chook. And I mean not a supermarket chook, but a beautiful chook that's roasted to perfection and is full of fresh herbs in the cavity and a squeeze of lemon, and cooked with such care, allowed to rest and then pulled apart and just almost eat with your fingers sometimes, because I'm a very tactile person. Scent and flavor and texture and simplicity of the season.
So yeah, well, we could do that again. So yeah, why do you think food is so closely linked to mental well-being, and where?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, food is so linked to well-being, because if you have beautiful food, you have physical well-being, which means that you're wanting to get out and exercise and be involved because physically you feel well. And so if you physically feel well, then you're more likely to look for relationships and connection. And therefore, all of that leads to mental well-being. And I also think the actual joy of cooking for yourself and for others is something that is so important, because when you're cooking for others, you're sharing, which means you also share the jobs. You share the table, you share the experience, you communicate. So for me, everything starts with good food.
Is it? I've grown up knowing you, and that you're in kind of so many of our households, and I guess in a way you kind of have this sort of iconic status for many of us. Have you found that to be challenging in your own life? I mean,
Oh, yes, yeah. I just yesterday, I didn't feel I'd done as good as I should, and I had this conversation with my EP about imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
and when people say all these wonderful things, and yet I know I'm just me, that it does lead, yes, it leads often to a lack of confidence that you're not doing as much as you could. And so having a status like that is difficult to believe in yourself, believe that you have it yourself. And so it can lead to those states of, who are they talking about?
What do you find in those moments that's most helpful for you, like in terms of your own self-care? What do you?
Okay, because this happened just yesterday to me, I can say the trigger was talking it through and being made to laugh.
Yeah.
You know, if there's one thing other than food and music and life, is laughter. And it's just interesting that this doubt in myself happened last night, and being able to talk to my executive producer, EP, who understood where I was coming from. So it was conversation that finished in laughter, which meant I slept well. And, you know, if you don't sleep well, it's harder to have joy in the day, even with good food.
We have another question here from Tracy. She said, your passion is infectious, Maggie, which I agree with. The importance of a meaningful existence is essential to quality of life. How can we effectively lobby for changes in aged care that you're advocating for?
Okay. One of the things is lobbying did help with having the Royal Commission, and the Royal Commission is helping the focus on, in everyone's mind, on aged care. The Royal Commission and COVID, but the focus is only one thing. We have to demand more. And that's what we have to demand, the fact that if the budget in aged care is so low, there is no possibility to do good food. You can't do good food, you can't have quality of life. So the advocating is to continue this conversation, and families to be, it's so important that families have the expectation that there should be good food, and a conversation should be had with management, but without we have to accelerate the conversation, as we need to accelerate the conversation about mental health, because it's all tied in together.
Have you seen I mean, there seems to be quite with the aged care reforms post Royal Commission, you know, quite a bit of investment and change that, you know, sort of came from that. But there's so much to be done, and sometimes it's helpful to have a kind of vision for what our society might look like. Where would you see, like in 10 years time, you know, what would you like to see? What's your vision?
All right, for me, we have to go back to the youth. We have to go back to, not every family has the love and support around it that others do. And so that love and support is, if it's not within the family, has to come from somewhere else, right? So we have to be more of a community, and it has to start with school, because look at Stephanie Alexander's Kitchen Foundation. What that does is have primary school students growing and cooking food and experiencing the joy of cooking, eating, and sharing the table. So that's, you know, we've got to start that as part of life, that we have to expand communities, because if you're not connected, if you don't have a purpose, and not everyone is lucky. And so we must be doing something at a grassroots level to make the society aware that these things are absolutely essential to a good life and therefore mental health.
Mm.
And I mean, even just having every school child understand that helping someone else, I mean, there are schools that bring in community issues, but it should be a standard, and there should be aged care homes and kindergartens in together. So we should just be developing our communities and developing a love of food and growing and the outdoors. I mean, it sounds so simple, but look at there's sort of an Eden alternative of life where everybody is involved, everybody is doing, and everybody cares. How we bring that back is it's not enough just to be in families, because some families will miss out. So that's where schools and society has got to take a lead as well.
Is that in your life, with people that have that drive to create that, either had that experience and want to give it to others, or they didn't have that experience and want to see it in others to kind of replicate it or recreate it? In your life, what's your experience been? What was your kind of growing up period like?
Well, I grew up in a family where food was so important, and the doing and and just being part of it. It was truly important, and the table. So there was that. I was very loved, and it gave me, when I was 14, my parents lost their business and I had to leave school, my elder brother and I, to keep the family. But in so many ways, that gave me grit and resilience. And so that was a gift. So it actually gave me something very strong in life, that I am now thankful for. But I was always surrounded by food, music, a very musical family, and a love of music and laughter. And so they were great building blocks in life. But then also I was lucky enough at that age to believe in myself, because I had to. And I never thought of anything else. I just did, and my elder brother did. And so I don't think it's the recipe for everybody, but for me, it was strength. And life hasn't always been easy, but I have always been lucky enough to find joy, and it's that love of those things: food, music, and laughter, and belonging. Yeah.
It's a amazing principle. If when, as you say, like it's great when that kind of love and joy is within the family, and then to protect you or to help you recover from life's challenges. And when that doesn't exist, we need the system to be there.
That's right.
In a
Yes.
supportive way. What's your kind of interaction with the mental health system, and or what would you like to see as part of our mental health system when that kind of love isn't
there? Well, firstly, I've got to say that there just isn't enough support, and that's got to be fixed, and particularly in regional areas. I can't tell you, having gone through issues and seeing issues with young people in the Barossa, which is only an hour from the city, and the finding of support. But it's not just finding support, it's finding the right support. So there has to be support no matter where people are. So how do we do that? And it's not just money, it's the right people. It's putting right people together. And that's a really tricky thing. What do I want to see? I want to see that there's no shame in this, that the understanding that everybody, right as we started, right at the beginning, everyone or every family will have a time in their life when they have needs that they need help for. So that's really important. But we need, oh gosh, we need a lot more empathy, and we need this basic understanding of the importance of the things that are going to give us well-being. I feel I'm repeating myself, but it is a holistic thing that we need. It's not just one thing. It's how do you give people a reason for getting up in the morning? That's got to be all part of what we learn. If it doesn't come automatically, and it doesn't come automatically for everyone, we have to find a way of giving that to people, which means society has to change.
And I enjoyed so much you talking about cooking the chicken and the broth. Perhaps I can indulge myself as a kind of last kind of question to ask you what would be the meal, like the meal that you would make as like the apotheosis of your kind of cooking and giving. Like, take us through a 3-course meal that you would make for all of us if we were sitting with you today.
Okay, well, it's spring, right? It's spring, so I would be cooking asparagus, big fat asparagus spears that were so fresh, and I would be making a verjuice beurre blanc so full of butter and acidity, and you'd pick up the asparagus in your hands and you dip the asparagus in this buttery, amazing flavor. That's number one. And then because, okay, it's a chook's going to come into it again, but this time I would splay the chook. I'd cut up the backbone and press it down, and I'd have some sourdough at the base of the pan, and I'd smother the chook in extra virgin olive oil and salt and verjuice, and put some herbs under the skin with more butter, and I'd roast it for you. And I would at the same time roast purple potatoes, because that's the thing, the foods that are going to be more better for your brain, always I'm looking for that. And purple, anything purple is, but I'd roast it, cut in half, and down under the chook as well. Okay, so that will be, and you've already had your greens with the asparagus. And then, okay, strawberries. Strawberries are about spring, and so they're never better. And if you're in Queensland, they're the best of all, but often they're not ripe when you buy them in the supermarkets, let me tell you. So I would cut the strawberries in half, and I would drizzle them with some vinacotto or balsamic, just a bit, and that brings out their flavor. And then I'd have a beautiful ice cream, because we started with ice cream, let's finish with ice cream. So all of this is really simple food, but it's full of beautiful flavors and textures and scent. And it's within everyone's grasp.
Bravo. I enjoyed every single second of that. Maggie, thank you so much for joining us, providing us with a bit of hope this morning, and kind of imaginative joy. It was really a pleasure to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone. Eat well and love life, please.
See ya.